It's great to see you folks. It's great to be part of this event. I'm really interested to hear more how this hybrid new style event is working as you get through it, because it's been a really tough, it's June 2021 when we're talking. It's been a really tough year and a half, and I actually haven't seen very many people or traveled much or any of that stuff, which used to feel so normal, and now I don't know what normal is anymore. So yeah, I'm really glad to be here. I have been in open source since 2005, and Drupal is my home project and my first project. I guess I was touching some PHP before I touched Drupal, but it was within a couple weeks, I think, of each other. So yeah. And I have contributed on a technical level with bug reports and testing things and trying things. I'm not sure I've ever contributed any code. I might have here and there. My coding career didn't last terribly long. I had the interesting opportunity to start doing communications work quite early on, and that has turned into a whole other series of things around generally around communication and I'd say evangelism. So I have the real privilege of being a popular conference keynote speaker and event host. So I've hosted open source award shows for all sorts of different communities, which is just almost the most fun I can have. Celebrating other people's accomplishments, celebrating people's contributions, and making dumb jokes on stage. That's my home base right there. I had a really nice part of my job about 10 years ago now, actually. Wow. Was managing the community sponsorship budget for Acquia, and I sponsored, let's see, I used to know this exactly. In 2012, I sponsored 82 Drupal camps, right? Now, it wasn't me and my money, but I was the connection between the community and helping out at that level. And that was so incredible. And it was such an amazing opportunity for me to get to know people and talk people through what they needed and how things were in their part of the world, and make friends that I still have, and that felt amazing. That was a really, really good time. I spent a bunch of time talking, getting to know people all around PHP, speaking at events that sort of like e-commerce or government events, talking about open source in general. And that's, I guess that's all. I hope that's all helped. I also, a lot of my talks end up being in a place around having had the chance to observe a lot of agencies and a lot of organizations struggle and succeed and fail with open source or with product offerings, and sort of putting those together into patterns and helping people maybe pitch open source from a business perspective and so on. And so fast forwarding quite a lot, since 2017, I'm the co-founder of a, let's see, what are we calling it this week? So we do strategic product communication. We're a communications agency essentially, but we do strategy and communications for technology organizations. And so I co-founded that in 2017, and my business partner, Tracy Evans, has a very strong business background and had very little technological or open source background. And I came in with technology and communications and open source, and we put that together. It's a privilege that we talk with technology organizations almost always in the open source space somehow, and we're able to help them, in the best case, succeed more, grow their businesses, grow their projects, increase adoption or awareness of their solutions, and it's fun. So I get to talk with our peers and our friends and help them, have a better life, and help more people, because I absolutely know, it's not just that I believe, but I know that open source principles and open source software makes the world a better place. So I feel like if I'm helping people succeed with all that stuff, that I'm making a difference that actually multiplies other people's efforts. And that's a position I love to be in. My company, Open Strategy Partners, was asked to help the TYPO3 community produce a book. And TYPO3, another PHP CMS that is, I find it utterly fascinating. First of all, it's a wonderful bunch of open source people doing business, doing web projects. Like, they should all be our friends, and they're just as weird and interesting as Drupal people. And they have literally the same tools and the same programming languages and the same PSR standards. And they have come up with this thing that is such a different approach to solving the same problem. And it's really exciting to say, hey, if you want to do this kind of a project, I'd say try TYPO3. And you want to do this kind of a project with this kind of a functionality, try Drupal. And if you are this or this or this, like, try Sulu or write it in Symfony. And I've got that perspective. And that's actually a part of what I wanted to do, was see who I was beyond being Drupal famous. So anyway, the TYPO3 Association asked my company to help them write the first book in English. That they hadn't had one for about 10 years. And so we put together a thing called the TYPO3 Guidebook that's been out since January. And it's been really well received. And it's an actual book on paper. And it looks like this. And my name is on it. Now, I want to say that the thing that we did, I have a team of people that I work with, and we write stuff every day. That's a big part of our communication business. The thing that we did with this book that I'm extremely proud of is we went to TYPO3 events, and we interviewed TYPO3 people, and we asked people questions, and we put questions in the community Slack, and we talked with the community design team and the community security team and the core development lead, and we compiled a huge set of information, channeling the knowledge of this community into this book. So this is not my book. I kind of organized it, so my name is on it, but this is the product of that community, right? And the association is using it to market their project, and they give it to people who are receiving mentoring and so on. And it's a really interesting way to use the power of community to collect knowledge. So that was super, super fun. And a really interesting model that I'd be super happy to talk with anyone else about, like, I don't know, doing or telling you how we did it. It's funny because it took us a couple years, and there were some real tough moments along the way, and some real like, oh God. And then we finished it, and sort of like, oh, we're free. And then I asked so the woman who did the most writing is Felicity Brand, who's a wonderful person, a wonderful writer in my team from Melbourne. And Felicity got, the most and the worst of everything. And we finished it, and we were like, oh, thank goodness. And I said, would you do it again, Felicity? And she's like, yeah, I would. Which was surprising because of how upset, it was tough at times. When we were removed from the program, it wasn't my choice. The association had some different priorities, and they were revamping how DrupalCon comes together. And I think that I don't think that they were right or wrong. I think that they used that time of the day to do something that was useful, and that's fine. But it was not, and to be honest, in parallel to what I was just talking about with that book, right? Coming up with 2 of those a year, and 3 of them the year we did Mumbai, that was a lot of work too. And like, it takes a lot of practice to make it that bad, right? No, but I think that there were moments when we were trying to figure out how to keep it fresh, and I don't know. I've been very, 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 very busy building this other thing in the last couple of years. And, if it comes back, I would be thrilled to do it. And we might come back to it fresher, Should I tell you the origin story of the Prenote? 2011 was DrupalCon Chicago. And George and Tiffany and all the wonderful Chicago community who were organizing the conference, and it was one of the last conferences that was still community organized, right? They had this idea to have like a talent show or a opening or a something before the Dries Note. And so like some people played some music and some people did some things and whatever. And Robert Douglas and I got on stage with like dumb, like glittery Blues Brothers hats and like told terrible bad jokes, like bad jokes on purpose. And people were like, oh, terrible. Oh God, what are they doing? And we told some dumb jokes. And but like, 4 or 5 minutes. And I remember talking with Scott Mattoon afterwards. And Scott Mattoon was at Sun and he was always at these Drupal events. Such a great guy. Don't know what he's doing now, but anyway. So we had these dumb hats, and I had my iPod Gen 5 on it, and we had put a karaoke track on this thing, and we plugged it in. So we plugged it into the speaker microphone deal on the podium, and then at a certain point, we clicked that, and I did the first Drupal song parody that we ever did, which was the Sound of Music Doe a Deer song with Drupal words, right? We brought it out again in Vienna a couple years ago. But anyway, that was the first Drupal parody song. And Scott told me, he's like in the audience already suffering because we were telling horrible jokes and just, and there was a couple thousand people in the room and everybody's like, ugh. And then I started singing, he's like, oh God, they're singing. Oh no. Oh, this can't get any. Wait a minute. That's kind of, he's got an okay voice. Oh, the words of, this is great. Wow. Like, so luckily we pulled that off. And then we played a lot of politics and asked a lot of favors. And every DrupalCon that we were at after that, we did some version of the Prenote, and we learned a lot of really cool things along the way. We had technical prenotes, we had music prenotes, and we had acting prenotes, right? So we learned that you can get away with a lot of bad singing and okay dancing, and people will love you for it, but people cannot stand amateur acting and telling dumb jokes. So that format kind of lost out over time. And we did a couple of things, and I really have to give credit to Robert Douglas, especially like the Denver Prenote when was Denver? Was that 2012? It was a long time ago in internet time. Robert Douglas put together a system where we could present slides on stage, and when he advanced the slides on stage, he gave people an address for their phones that they could go to, and it would grab the phone and with a WebSocket, and that was super new. And when we were advancing slides on stage, there was a second set of slides on people's phones that was advancing at the same time. So we could like tell jokes about the slides that we were doing on stage. And he built a live polling function for the phones so that we did a live survey in that audience. And this is before Google Hangouts or any of that stuff. It was before anyone was doing that. And he stayed up all night finishing it, which was pretty typical for us the night before, and left some debugging code in it. So it broke halfway through, and he live debugged it on the big screen in the keynote hall, which got the most applause of anything ever. And Joe Bacana had composed the music that we were going to sing, and we had a couple of musical numbers, and Rob wrote another interactive thing where you could choose 3 or 4 options on your phone, and it was playing the accompaniment to what we were singing in real time, and people could choose which piece of the music they were playing from their devices at the same time. It was mind-blowing. There were some crazy conceptual ones, and there was a great one that didn't fit anything else in Amsterdam, in the where everybody told their Drupal story, and we had collected stories ahead of time, and we had the whole stage. There must have been 30 or 40 people on it, who all told like between 30 seconds and 3 minutes of how Drupal had changed their life, right? And like, and how Ruth and Michael Schmid met because he lost his keys at DrupalCon Prague and had to stay the night at her place, and how Paul and Nancy, how their relationship started, and and then and that was just the most touching, beautiful set of moments. And we put a couple of like dumb jokes and musical numbers into the middle of it, but we just brought out people's stories, and it was so powerful. And I just the thing that ties together my Drupal career and my technology career and my open source career is that I'm really, really interested in the people behind the technology. I'm really interested in those stories. I'm really interested in the good we do in the world and the difference we make. And so like Michael and Ruth now being engaged, and spending their lives together, it's hard to it's kind of the biggest change you can make, right? So somehow for me, that's all part of the technology stuff. I believe in the power of connecting directly. I have to admit that right now I'm very nervous because people are back out on the street. The pandemic was hard for so many of us, and I'm not used to seeing people, and I'm not used to traveling, and I suppose I'll get there, but I think a friend of mine said that they would like to preserve the good parts of the pandemic and the fact that we've been forced to slow down and think about what's important and who we are and what we do. And it would be, I don't want to go back to a moment where I'm just like, get on a plane, do a thing, boom, 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 go out to dinner, without just thinking. I think it's okay to be a little bit more, consider our actions more. Virtual conferences. I have also thought about this a lot because I've been talking with my clients about it for the last year and a half. And so our clients are agencies, product companies, open source associations, and so on. And I think that presenting your clever idea about doing a thing, or showing how you build a module, or whatever, the regular presentation stuff, I think that it's pretty good. And we organized a session for the last DrupalCon that wasn't in Barcelona, that got more than 100 people to attend. And I think that in right now that having an audience of that size is great, and it means that the panel we organized, everybody got to say their piece, and 100 people got to hear that and probably tell some other people that it was cool. So I think that it can be good for those of us who want to present an idea. I also had a candid word with a larger company who's used to sponsoring at tech events and having a booth, and used to doing business, like having a lot of meetings and getting a lot of prospects in there and either there or within a month or two, like signing business. And they say that being a sponsor for virtual events has brought them nothing at all, no business, and this whole virtual sponsor floor and whatever has not worked for them, and it's not a way that they're choosing not to do it. I think they did it for most of a year, and it showed that it wasn't a good return. So that's really tricky, right? Because it's really hard to have conferences without sponsors. I also think that there are some online events that are quite good, and seminars and learning opportunities for smaller groups, maybe 10 or 20 people, maybe, but 10 people for sure. Like we've had to learn to do client workshops virtually. So we've got some really exciting Miro boards, and we've got some really smart ways that my colleagues have come up to use spreadsheets and to sort results and to keep people moving, and the use breakout rooms and so on. And so the teaching and learning opportunities are still quite good. The other thing, wait a minute. Oh, and there was one more thing that I was going to say. And I think in an exception to that, and I don't know what, I know that not everybody thought so, but I thought that the Drupal Splash Awards that I hosted virtually and the Swiss Drupal Awards that I also hosted virtually, I thought they actually went quite well, and I suspect more people came and stayed at those events because they could listen at their desks while they were doing something else. And it's more people that maybe would have gone to Mannheim or Hamburg or wherever to go to a theater to do that. And I love doing those events, and I like wearing a nice suit and jumping around on stage, but still the chance to know those projects and extract the stories behind them, I think that worked quite well. So I think that the valuable part of award shows for me is pulling out those stories. Who did you do it for? Why did it happen? How did they benefit? That's what I care about there. And I don't personally care about the fastest this and the most advanced that and the implementation of the whatever. When I judge those things, I care about contribution. I care about the business case first. And then I care about, is it pretty? Because that's what I care about, right? What's the business case? Contribution, is it pretty? So the awards, I think I thought that worked quite well. And I also, the last event that I went to in person was Drupal Camp London 2020. And there were already hybrid sessions there where we'd be sitting in a conference room and the presenter was somewhere else. That's also not the worst. I asked Jeff Geerling in the past, I said, when does he sleep? Because of the amount of stuff that he's able to do in his life. And he said, oh, I outsourced it. I have watched Jeff Geerling videos of how to remove conference stickers from your laptop. There are 2 different methods. I have watched Jeff Geerling build his basement stairs, refloor his front room with hardwood flooring, talk a lot about Ansible, and even more about Drupal, right? And his whole Raspberry Pi, all that stuff. It's been surprising to me. I've gotten back into the podcasting world recently. I had been out since 2017, and people love shows that are an hour long. People really seem to have time to listen to an hour of stuff. And, live streams are clearly a thing now. And it makes a huge difference, of course, now that bandwidth is essentially for free and phone batteries will actually last all day. I think that really helps. I say, why not? And I think that one of the tricks is something. So a new thing that we're just starting with at my company that one of my team members brought to me. She said, yeah, okay, so we'll do these podcasts and they'll be an hour, but then we're going to chop out pieces of them, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes long. And we're going to release them separately with their own tags and their own SEO optimization for a specific topic, right? So if you have the time and the resources to give people that 1 minute chunk of this is how you debug that thing, and this is how you fix that setting in this version of, DaVinci or Drupal or Gatsby or whatever. Yes, I think that those are incredibly valuable. And the search engines really support giving you those snippets within the larger things, as long as the creators are marking them up the right way. So, yes, let's flood them with with content. Back at the sort of height of my Drupal podcasting, I was at, in fact, it was at DrupalCon Mumbai, and a local crew was interviewing me for their media stuff, and the interviewer said, oh, when you do your interviews, I always watch them on YouTube because I love to see how you interact with the people and how you use your hands on camera. And so and then we had a bunch of other, but she said that. And the same day I went to dinner with a bunch of Drupal people from around the world. And the podcast came up again. And one guy said, oh, I listen to every episode because that's what I listen to when I'm doing the dishes. Right? Podcasts, I listen when I do the dishes. And another guy said, oh, I don't have time to waste in my life. So I look at your written post first to decide whether I'm going to invest my time to listen. So if you have good post and good video and good audio, right? And now adding these extra snippets, right? I think that you're helping every learning style and helping your SEOs, findability, and now the search engines care about authority and reputation, right? So not exactly a plug for Open Strategy Partners, but we think a lot about if your area of expertise is X, then you should have team members who list that in their profile. If you are interested in getting clients in a particular industry vertical or geography, you should have those things mentioned on your site, and then link back, like make sure that the blog about the topic X is authored by the person with that in their profile, and just like build up this depth of credibility, right? So, and I think with the media now, make it as easy to consume as possible. We're in the middle of launching our company podcast, and we're doing that because, well, I'll tell you the funny bit. So I released episode 0, like the one to get Apple Podcasts to notice you and just set up the stream, right? And I had all 10 of the people on my team. We're now 11, but I had all 10 people who were part of the team a few weeks ago read the same script. And then I cut it together and I could theoretically do multiple versions of people like saying the same things in different ways. And then I cut it with the music and whatever. And it was a ridiculous amount of work that I don't want to do on a regular basis. But the fact is that like start to finish, all of us believe in what we're doing, and everybody's telling a different piece of it and like essentially finishing each other's sentences. And I think it comes across quite nicely. We are launching the podcast because we are helping our friends and peers do better business. So we're specializing in open source focused technology organizations, product companies, agencies, and we are beginning to release our tools and templates and documentation because we come from that background, right? There are so many people who are never going to be my client, but who I can help be better writers and do better, more strategic product communication. And so a big part of the podcast is releasing pieces of our work and setting up. We're going to have the templates on our site and stuff. So we're doing it to help people do what we do better. And I'm really excited about it because well, first of all, I love producing podcasts. I really love the medium, but I really I want to show. Now, come back and ask me in a year or two, but I want to show that we, not doing code, can still open source how we work and succeed, right? So we'll see how that goes. There are two people in the TYPO3 world who are interesting and articulate in general. So the TYPO3 core lead is Benny Mack, and he's been to DrupalCon before and contributed to Drupal, and he's a really great guy. And the TYPO3 project has a chief product officer, the project itself has a chief product officer, and he's thinking about roadmaps and strategies and stuff. And his name is Volker Graubaum, and he's really, really interesting. Frankly, who else have I been talking to lately? Oh, Addison Berry's always good. Well, you know what? Speaking of the pre-note, and speaking of getting perspectives, Campbell Vertesi is a team lead at Microsoft nowadays. Yeah? So if you can trick him into having time, you should ask him about Microsoft and open source, because it's pretty interesting.